The restaurant was buzzing with activity as the lunch crowd filled every table. Waiters and waitresses hurried between diners, carrying plates of steaming food and glasses of water. The young waitress moved with careful balance, her uniform slightly wrinkled from the long hours she had been on her feet. She had learned to keep her expression neutral, hiding the exhaustion that came from working double shifts. Every tip mattered. Every smile she offered could make a difference to the customers. And she had learned the art of staying polite even when life felt unfair. Today felt like any other busy day, but there was a different energy in the air. A group of well-dressed individuals entered the restaurant, their presence immediately commanding attention. The young waitress noticed the sharp suits, the expensive watches, and the air of confidence that surrounded them. At the center of the group was a man whose presence seemed to fill the entire room. He moved with the kind of authority that came from wealth and experience, his eyes scanning the restaurant as if evaluating everything at a glance. When he arrived at the table she was serving, he didn't greet her politely. Instead, his gaze lingered on her simple outfit, the uniform that had been passed down to many employees over the years. A faint smirk appeared on his face as he leaned slightly forward, making a comment that she could hear clearly, though the surrounding noise tried to mask it. His words were sharp, almost cutting, pointing out the contrast between his elegance and her modest appearance. The people at the table laughed politely, but the young waitress felt the weight of the embarrassment settle on her shoulders. Despite the sting of his words, she continued her duties, setting down the dishes with practiced care. Her hands were steady even as her mind raced with thoughts she dared not speak aloud. She reminded herself that this job was a means to an end, a way to provide for her family, and that no one's opinion of her in this moment could define her worth. She had been through worse, faced judgment from strangers who saw only her exterior, and had learned to rise above it. Her eyes met his for a brief moment, and she noticed something curious. A flicker of interest, perhaps even amusement, in his expression. It made her wonder if he thought he had won this unspoken battle of social status. The rest of the table engaged in light conversation, discussing business deals and travel plans, their laughter echoing through the restaurant. The young waitress listened politely as she took their orders, careful to remember every detail. She asked questions to clarify requests, offered suggestions when appropriate, and kept her tone friendly and professional. She had mastered the ability to make customers feel important, even when they could be dismissive or condescending. As she served the appetizers, the billionaire continued to watch her closely. It was clear he enjoyed pointing out the differences between his world and hers, testing her reactions. Yet, instead of shrinking away, she remained composed, allowing him to see only the calm exterior she presented to the world. She had learned that patience and dignity could be more powerful than a sharp tongue or defensive words. Each step she took through the restaurant seemed measured, deliberate, as if she were performing a silent dance that balanced efficiency with grace. The young waitress had been in situations like this before, but something about this man felt different. His presence was overwhelming, not just because of his wealth, but because of the confidence and authority that radiated from him. People like him were accustomed to getting what they wanted, to having their opinions dominate conversations. Yet she sensed that beneath the arrogance, there was a curiosity, a challenge that perhaps even he had not encountered often. It made her resolve quietly strengthen. She would not let this encounter shake her. She would serve him well, as she served every other customer, with care and professionalism. The restaurant's atmosphere continued to hum with activity. Orders were being called out from the kitchen. The clatter of dishes mixed with the murmur of conversation, creating a symphony of ordinary life. The young waitress moved through it all, noting the small details. The way a customer crinkled their nose at a dish, the subtle nod of approval from another, the soft tones of laughter from a couple celebrating a small victory. She thrived on these small moments of human connection, finding satisfaction in the knowledge that she could make someone's day a little better through her efforts. When she reached the billionaire's table again with the main course, she made sure everything was perfectly arranged. She set down each plate carefully, ensuring sauces didn't spill and garnishes were in place. Her movements were precise, almost ritualistic, a reflection of the pride she took in her work. The man's eyes followed her every motion, a hint of amusement still lingering, perhaps waiting for a sign of weakness or embarrassment. But she gave none. She offered a polite smile, asked if everything was to their liking, and moved on. Each action was quiet yet assertive, a subtle statement of self-respect and competence. In the brief moments when she returned to the side station, she allowed herself to breathe, wiping her hands on a towel and straightening her posture. She thought of her family, the reason she worked so hard, and the dreams she held close. She reminded herself that the judgment of a stranger, no matter how powerful, could not take away her worth. She had faced challenges before, and she had overcome them. This moment, she realized, was simply another test of patience and grace. As the lunch service continued, she noticed small gestures from other diners, some impressed by her composure, others perhaps unaware of the quiet strength she carried. She moved from table to table, each interaction a tiny story of human connection, of empathy and understanding. Even in the face of ridicule, she maintained her focus, knowing that her actions, not words, spoke volumes about her character. The young waitress finished the final round of serving, returning to the side station with a sense of quiet accomplishment. She had navigated the storm of scrutiny with dignity, and in doing so had preserved her self-respect. The billionaire watched her with an expression that hinted at both intrigue and respect, though he would not admit it aloud. He had encountered many people in his life, but few who could remain so composed under pressure, and fewer still who carried themselves with such quiet strength. As the lunch hour began to wind down, the young waitress took a moment to collect herself. She had served hundreds of plates, smiled through countless conversations, and faced judgment without faltering. It was another day, like so many before, yet she felt a small spark of confidence, a reminder that she was capable, resilient, and unbroken. The encounter with the billionaire, though uncomfortable, had revealed something about both of them. Her ability to remain strong under scrutiny and his realization that appearances could be deceiving. In the background, the restaurant continued its rhythm, the ebb and flow of human activity carrying on as it always did. She prepared for the next round of customers, aware that her life would continue with the same challenges and triumphs. But for a brief moment, she allowed herself a quiet thought, that dignity, patience, and a steadfast heart were worth more than any outward display of wealth, and that she had proven that today, without saying a single word in defense of herself. As the meal continued, the young waitress moved between the tables with a steady rhythm, carefully taking orders and serving dishes. She noticed the billionaire's eyes following her every move, a mixture of curiosity and amusement in his expression. It was clear he enjoyed watching her reactions, testing her patience and composure. Despite this, she kept her focus on her work, making sure each plate was delivered perfectly and that every request was handled promptly. She had learned early on that keeping calm in difficult situations often spoke louder than words. The billionaire decided to engage her directly, asking her a series of questions in a tone that was both mocking and challenging. He inquired about her knowledge of wines and the origins of the dishes he was served, expecting her to falter. Many people in her position might have felt nervous or flustered, but she calmly answered each question, demonstrating a surprising depth of understanding. She spoke clearly and confidently, explaining the nuances of flavors and offering insights that most customers never even considered. Her tone was polite but assured, showing that she had experience and intelligence despite her humble appearance. Her answers caught the billionaire off guard. He had expected her to be unsure, maybe embarrassed, but instead, she displayed competence and confidence. There was a momentary pause, a quiet space in the room where it felt as if time had slowed down. The other diners seemed to notice the shift too, some exchanging curious glances. The young waitress continued her service without showing any sign of discomfort, moving from one table to another with grace and efficiency. The billionaire's amusement turned into intrigue. He began asking more personal questions, not about her life in a probing way, but in a manner that challenged her perspective and encouraged conversation. He wanted to see how she would respond, how she handled pressure, and whether she could hold her ground. She answered honestly, revealing her motivations for working hard and supporting her family. Her words were simple but heartfelt, carrying a weight that went beyond the everyday interactions she had with customers. She spoke about the sacrifices she made, the dreams she held, and the lessons she had learned from hardship. With each interaction, she subtly demonstrated qualities that went unnoticed at first glance. Her patience, her attention to detail, and her ability to remain composed under scrutiny painted a picture of a person who was resilient and strong. The billionaire had met many people who were wealthy, powerful, and confident, but he rarely encountered someone who could command respect without relying on status or appearance. He found himself observing her closely, trying to understand the depth of her character. Other diners began to notice small exchanges between them, the quiet tension, and the subtle signs of mutual recognition. She was no ordinary waitress, and he was no ordinary customer. Their interaction became a silent game of wit and awareness, each gauging the other without words. She moved through the room like a well-rehearsed performance, her every action measured and deliberate. Each smile, each polite word, and each careful movement was a display of her self-respect and competence. During a brief lull, she returned to the side station to refresh supplies and check on other tables. Her hands moved quickly and efficiently, her mind still alert to the presence of the billionaire at the table. She noticed how his eyes followed her even as she was away, a subtle acknowledgement of her skill and composure. She allowed herself a small smile, recognizing the quiet satisfaction of holding her own in a situation where many might have faltered. She reminded herself that this was not about proving anything to him, but about staying true to herself and her values. When she approached his table again with the next course, she noticed the slight shift in his demeanor. The smirk that had been so prominent earlier was softened, replaced with something closer to genuine interest. She answered his questions with clarity and grace, showing not only knowledge but also insight. She offered suggestions on pairings and explained the preparation methods in simple terms, making the experience engaging without being pretentious. Her ability to make complex topics approachable impressed him more than he expected. The conversation between them deepened naturally, flowing from light teasing to thoughtful discussion. He asked about her perspective on success and ambition, curious about how someone in her position viewed the world. She responded with honesty, sharing her beliefs and experiences without hesitation. She spoke about the value of hard work, the importance of kindness, and the resilience required to navigate life's challenges. Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that made him pause and consider his own assumptions. Throughout the interaction, she maintained a balance between professionalism and authenticity. She was approachable yet confident, polite yet firm in her opinions. The billionaire found himself genuinely interested in what she had to say, intrigued by the depth he had not expected to find. He began to see beyond the uniform and the modest appearance, recognizing the intelligence, determination, and dignity that she carried effortlessly. Other staff and diners observed the dynamic, sensing the subtle transformation in the atmosphere. What had started as a tense encounter, with the billionaire attempting to assert his superiority, was evolving into a conversation marked by mutual respect. The young waitress, unaware of the effect she was having, focused on her work, ensuring that each guest felt attended to and valued. Her composure and skill were evident in every action, from refilling glasses to explaining dishes with clarity. As the meal progressed, she noticed small gestures from the billionaire that indicated a change in his attitude. He asked her opinion on various matters, listened intently, and acknowledged her insights with thoughtful responses. It became clear that he was reassessing his initial judgment, realizing that her worth could not be measured by outward appearances alone. His initial mockery had inadvertently led to a deeper understanding of her character, a recognition of the resilience and intelligence that she possessed. The young waitress took a moment to reflect on the encounter. She had maintained her dignity, demonstrated her knowledge, and handled scrutiny with grace. Despite the initial discomfort, she had managed to turn the situation into an opportunity to showcase her true self. Her quiet strength and professionalism spoke volumes, leaving an impression that went far beyond the surface level. By the end of the meal, The billionaire was no longer just an observer. He was genuinely engaged, curious, and intrigued. He had encountered many people in his life, but few who could hold their own under such pressure while remaining authentic and composed. The young waitress had not only survived the encounter but had subtly shifted the dynamic, earning respect through her actions and demeanor. As she cleared the table and returned to the side station, she felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had navigated the challenge with grace, turning a potentially humiliating situation into a demonstration of her competence and character. The experience reinforced her belief in the power of patience, composure, and self-respect. She knew that appearances could be deceiving, and that true strength often lay beneath the surface, waiting to be recognized by those who took the time to see it. The restaurant continued its rhythm, with laughter, conversation, and the clatter of dishes filling the space. She moved through it all with ease, aware that the encounter had left a lasting impression on both herself and the billionaire. The subtle shift in his behavior was a testament to her ability to rise above judgment, demonstrating that dignity and intelligence could command respect in any situation. It was a moment that would linger in her memory, a reminder that strength and grace often reveal themselves in the quietest of ways. The lunch service was nearing its end, and the restaurant had begun to quiet down slightly, though it was still filled with the chatter of satisfied customers. The young waitress moved steadily between the tables, collecting plates and refilling water glasses. Her attention remained focused, but there was a small flicker of anticipation in her mind. She knew that this moment was approaching, the one where she could subtly shift the perception that had been imposed on her at the beginning of the meal. The billionaire continued to watch her, his initial amusement slowly giving way to curiosity and respect. He had expected someone timid, someone easily flustered by his presence and comments. Instead, he found a woman who remained calm, composed, and articulate, navigating the challenges of her job with grace. He leaned back in his chair, studying her movements, noting the ease with which she carried herself despite the weight of his scrutiny. When she approached his table with the dessert menu, she offered a polite smile and inquired if there was anything specific he would like. He looked up, an eyebrow slightly raised, as if expecting another round of meek responses or nervous laughter. Instead, she spoke with confidence, suggesting a pairing that complemented the meal perfectly. Her explanation was simple, clear, and precise, demonstrating not only knowledge but also a refined sense of taste and understanding. The billionaire was impressed, but he was not yet fully prepared for the next moment. She reached into her pocket with a casual grace that belied the tension of the situation and pulled out a card. The movement was subtle, almost nonchalant, but it caught his attention immediately. He leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing in curiosity, as he realized what he was seeing. The card was black, sleek, and unmistakably a symbol of significant financial power and status. She placed it briefly on the table as she discussed the dessert options, her tone light and conversational. It was a small act, yet it carried an enormous weight. The billionaire's initial impression, formed from her modest appearance and humble demeanor, began to crumble. He had assumed she was just another waitress, someone without influence or power. This simple act revealed the truth. She was independent, capable, and had her own standing in the world. The restaurant seemed to fade slightly into the background as the two of them shared this unspoken moment of realization. He watched as she spoke, now aware that the person before him was far more complex and layered than he had initially imagined. Her confidence was not boastful or aggressive. It was quiet, understated, and powerful in a way that commanded respect naturally. Her colleagues in the restaurant noticed the subtle shift as well. Waiters and waitresses who had observed the interaction from a distance began to sense the change in atmosphere. The billionaire's laughter and smug expressions were replaced with attentive curiosity. He began asking more thoughtful questions, not to mock or challenge her, but to genuinely understand her perspective and experiences. It was as if the simple act of revealing her card had opened a door, creating space for a different kind of dialogue. The young waitress continued her service, maintaining her professionalism while subtly asserting her own presence. She answered his questions honestly, discussing her approach to work, her ambitions, and the lessons she had learned along the way. Each word was carefully chosen, reflecting the experience and wisdom gained from years of hard work. She spoke without arrogance, yet with a quiet authority that was impossible to ignore. The billionaire, who had spent his life navigating power and influence, found himself intrigued by the simplicity and depth of her answers. He was accustomed to people attempting to impress him with wealth, charm, or flattery, but here was someone who commanded respect through authenticity and integrity. His initial assumptions about her had been proven completely wrong, and he could not hide his fascination. The moment grew even more engaging as she discussed her values and priorities. She spoke about the importance of family, the satisfaction derived from helping others, and the sense of accomplishment that came from working hard for one's goals. Her words resonated beyond the boundaries of social class, appealing to the universal human appreciation for perseverance and character. The billionaire listened intently, recognizing that he had encountered a person who could challenge not just his assumptions but also his worldview. As the conversation continued, she demonstrated a subtle but undeniable ability to command attention without demanding it. Her gestures were natural, her voice steady, and her demeanor composed. She had created an atmosphere where her presence alone was compelling, drawing people into her world without effort or artifice. The black card, once a symbol of surprise and revelation, became almost secondary to the strength and authenticity she radiated. The billionaire attempted to regain some control of the conversation, posing challenging scenarios and hypothetical questions. She answered with clarity and insight, never faltering, never giving him reason to dismiss her. Each response reinforced the fact that she was intelligent, capable, and self-assured. The dynamic between them shifted entirely. The initial mockery was replaced by mutual recognition and respect. Throughout this exchange, the young waitress remained mindful of the other diners, ensuring that every customer received the same attention and care. She did not let the intensity of the encounter distract her from her duties. Her focus and efficiency were remarkable, reflecting her ability to balance multiple demands without losing composure. Observers noted the rare combination of competence, poise, and understated confidence, a combination that was both impressive and inspiring. At one point, the billionaire leaned back, a subtle smile appearing on his face. He acknowledged, through his expression and attentive listening, the unexpected turn the interaction had taken. He had entered the restaurant with assumptions, expecting to feel superior and amused at the expense of another. Instead, he found himself confronted with an individual whose quiet strength and self-respect demanded acknowledgement. He realized that his preconceived notions had been flawed, and he could not help but feel a growing admiration. The young waitress, aware of the impact she had made, maintained her focus on the task at hand. She did not seek recognition or validation. Her actions were driven by her principles and dedication. Her ability to remain composed while subtly revealing her own worth left a lasting impression, not only on the billionaire but also on the other staff and diners who witnessed the interaction. It was a testament to the power of dignity, self-confidence, and authentic presence. As the meal concluded and dessert plates were cleared, the dynamic between the two had completely transformed. The billionaire, once dismissive and mocking, now engaged with genuine interest and curiosity. He asked thoughtful questions, listened intently, and even offered reflections on the insights she had shared. The young waitress had successfully navigated a situation designed to challenge her, using intelligence, grace, and quiet authority to turn the tables. Returning to the side station, she allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. The tension that had defined the earlier part of the meal had shifted into a sense of mutual respect and understanding. She had not only preserved her dignity but had also subtly revealed her strength and independence. The encounter had been a turning point, a demonstration of how appearances could be deceiving and how confidence and character could command attention without the need for confrontation. In the background, the restaurant continued its rhythm, a mix of laughter, conversation, and clinking dishes creating a familiar soundtrack to the day. The young waitress moved efficiently between tables, her mind calm and focused, carrying the quiet satisfaction of having navigated a challenging encounter with poise. She knew that the lessons of the day extended beyond this meal. That patience, authenticity, and quiet strength were often the most powerful tools in navigating a world that often judged too quickly. The encounter had revealed more than just her capabilities. It had revealed the billionaire's own capacity for reassessment and openness. He had been challenged to see beyond appearances, to recognize the depth and intelligence that could exist where he had assumed there was only simplicity. It was a subtle, transformative moment for both of them, quietly redefining assumptions and expectations. As the young waitress prepared for the next round of customers, she reflected on the encounter with a sense of quiet pride. She had faced scrutiny, mockery, and subtle challenges, yet she had remained true to herself. Her composure, knowledge, and authenticity had created a lasting impression, a reminder that dignity and self-respect often speak louder than any words. It was a lesson that would remain with her, a testament to the power of remaining strong, calm, and confident in the face of judgment. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted in a subtle but undeniable way. The young waitress moved with the same calm, efficient manner she always had, but she could sense the change in the billionaire's attention. He was no longer observing with the intention of finding flaws or weaknesses. Instead, his eyes reflected curiosity and interest. He leaned back in his chair, resting his chin on his hand, and began asking questions that went beyond the menu and the restaurant. He wanted to know about her life, her experiences, and her perspective on the world. She answered honestly, speaking about the challenges she had faced growing up, the responsibilities she had taken on at a young age, and the reasons she worked so hard. She spoke about her family, their struggles, and the little victories that kept them moving forward. Her words were simple, yet filled with depth, showing the billionaire that there was much more to her than met the eye. He listened intently, clearly impressed by the maturity and wisdom she carried despite her age and position. As she spoke, she noticed the subtle nods and expressions of acknowledgement from him. His initial mockery and judgment had been replaced by respect and a genuine desire to understand. The young waitress felt a quiet satisfaction but did not let it show in an exaggerated way. She continued to carry out her duties while engaging in the conversation, balancing professionalism with authenticity. It was clear that her composure and grace had transformed the interaction from one of tension into one of connection. The billionaire began to share a little about himself as well, talking about the pressures of his life and the expectations that came with his wealth and position. He spoke candidly, revealing that despite all his success, there were moments when he questioned the path he was on and wondered if he truly understood the people around him. The waitress listened attentively, nodding in understanding. She did not judge or interrupt, but her thoughtful responses encouraged him to continue sharing. Their conversation moved naturally from topic to topic. He asked her opinion on matters ranging from business decisions to simple life choices. She responded with clarity and insight, never overstepping, yet never diminishing her own voice. Each answer reflected her experience and intelligence, making it clear that her knowledge extended far beyond what her job title might suggest. She spoke about resilience, the value of patience, and the importance of integrity, drawing from her own life without making it sound like a lecture. The billionaire was surprised at how grounded and insightful she was. He had encountered many people who tried to impress him with fancy words or ambitious claims, but she impressed him in a way that felt genuine and effortless. Her presence was calming yet commanding, and he found himself reflecting on his own assumptions. The more they talked, the more he realized that true strength and intelligence were not always visible on the surface, and that appearances could be deceiving. The young waitress remained composed, attending to his table and others, but she noticed the subtle shift in how he engaged with her. His questions became more thoughtful, his tone more respectful. He asked about her aspirations, her dreams, and the steps she had taken to achieve them. She shared her ambitions carefully, highlighting her desire to improve her life and help her family, while also emphasizing the importance of hard work and dedication. Her honesty and sincerity created an atmosphere of trust and understanding. Other diners and staff began to notice the dynamic change. The billionaire's entourage, who had initially appeared amused by the situation, now watched quietly, sensing the respect he was beginning to show. The young waitress, meanwhile, continued her service without distraction, her focus on ensuring that every guest felt attended to and valued. Her ability to maintain professionalism while engaging in such a meaningful conversation demonstrated a remarkable balance of skills. As the discussion continued, the billionaire started to reflect on his own life and priorities. He realized that he had often underestimated people based on appearances or social status. This encounter was forcing him to reconsider his judgments and acknowledge the intelligence and strength of someone who had been largely invisible to the world. The young waitress, through her poise and thoughtful words, had created a space for meaningful reflection that extended beyond the restaurant walls. She spoke about the importance of empathy and understanding, of seeing people for who they truly are rather than what they seem to be. Her experiences had taught her that everyone has a story, challenges, and strengths that may not be immediately visible. The billionaire listened, visibly moved by her perspective. He began asking questions not to challenge her, but to understand how she had developed such a clear and grounded view of life. The conversation deepened as they discussed aspirations and obstacles. She shared stories of moments when she had faced doubt or criticism, and how she had persevered despite setbacks. Each story was told simply and sincerely, illustrating the resilience and determination that had shaped her character. The billionaire, who had seen the power of wealth and influence, found himself inspired by her resourcefulness and courage. He realized that her value was measured not by money or status, but by her integrity, intelligence, and ability to navigate life with grace. Throughout this exchange, the young waitress maintained a natural balance between engagement and professionalism. She did not dominate the conversation, yet she held his attention effortlessly. Her calm demeanor, thoughtful responses, and quiet confidence created an atmosphere that was both respectful and stimulating. The billionaire found himself learning from her, appreciating the depth of her perspective and the strength of her character. As the lunch service wound down, their interaction had transformed completely. What had begun as an encounter marked by judgment and mockery had evolved into a meaningful connection based on respect, curiosity, and understanding. The billionaire now approached the waitress with a genuine sense of admiration, recognizing the intelligence, resilience, and authenticity she displayed in every action and word. The young waitress, while aware of the change in his attitude, remained grounded in her purpose. She continued to serve with care and attentiveness, ensuring that every guest had a positive experience. Her focus on her work, combined with her ability to engage in thoughtful conversation, highlighted the balance she had mastered between duty and personal expression. She had navigated a complex social dynamic with skill, turning a potentially humiliating situation into one of mutual recognition. By the end of the meal, the billionaire's initial assumptions had been completely overturned. He had come to understand that true value was not always visible, and that the young waitress possessed qualities that far surpassed the superficial judgments of wealth and appearance. Her composure, intelligence, and authenticity had left a lasting impression, challenging him to reconsider how he evaluated people in his life. The young waitress, preparing to finish her shift, reflected quietly on the encounter. She had maintained her dignity, demonstrated her abilities, and subtly reshaped the perception of someone who initially sought to belittle her. The experience reinforced her belief in the power of patience, authenticity, and self-respect. It was a reminder that confidence and integrity often speak louder than words, and that the impact of one's character can extend far beyond immediate circumstances. As she moved through the restaurant one final time, attending to the last few customers, she felt a sense of quiet pride. She had faced judgment, maintained professionalism, and created a space for meaningful dialogue. The billionaire, once a figure of intimidation, had become an observer of her strength and intelligence. The transformation in their interaction was subtle yet profound, demonstrating the power of dignity, empathy, and understanding in human relationships. The restaurant's rhythm continued around her, with the soft hum of conversation, clinking dishes, and the movement of staff creating a familiar backdrop. Yet within this ordinary setting, an extraordinary connection had taken place. The young waitress had not only proven her competence, but had also revealed the depth of her character. The billionaire, for his part, had learned a valuable lesson about assumptions, respect, and the importance of looking beyond appearances. As she closed out her shift, the young waitress felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond the usual satisfaction of a job well done. She had navigated a complex social interaction with grace, leaving an impression that would likely stay with the billionaire long after he left the restaurant. Her ability to balance professionalism with authenticity, humility with confidence, and service with insight had created a moment of human connection that transcended the ordinary. In the quiet moments after the lunch rush, she allowed herself to reflect on the day. She had faced challenges, maintained composure under scrutiny, and revealed her strength and independence in a subtle yet powerful way. The encounter had been more than just a meeting between a waitress and a wealthy customer. It had been a lesson in resilience, dignity, and the profound impact of authenticity. It was a reminder that true respect is earned not through status or wealth, but through character, intelligence, and the quiet strength that shines through in moments of challenge and pressure. As the lunch service drew to a close, the young waitress moved through the restaurant with the calm efficiency that had marked her entire day. Her shift was nearly over, yet she remained fully focused, attending to each table with care and precision. The atmosphere around her was lively, but she could feel the subtle shift in attention from the billionaire, who was no longer just a customer, but someone genuinely engaged in observing her composure, intelligence, and character. He had started the meal with judgment, assuming she was nothing more than a simple waitress, easily mocked and dismissed. But as the hours passed, her quiet strength and knowledge had completely reshaped his perception. He watched her now with a newfound respect, leaning forward slightly in his chair, showing genuine interest in her thoughts and experiences. It was a remarkable transformation, and she noticed it without letting it affect the calm professionalism she maintained. When she approached his table to clear the last of the dishes, he paused her gently, asking a question about her long-term goals. She answered thoughtfully, speaking about the importance of education, hard work, and supporting her family. Her words were sincere and measured, reflecting the life lessons she had learned while facing challenges and adversity. The billionaire listened intently, genuinely absorbing each point, his earlier amusement replaced with curiosity and admiration. He asked her if she had ever imagined that someone from her background could have such knowledge and presence. She smiled softly, replying that life had taught her to learn from every opportunity and that she had never underestimated herself. The confidence she projected was quiet but unmistakable, showing that she had grown resilient through experience and dedication. Her humility and determination impressed him even more, revealing a depth of character he had rarely seen in people he had met before. The interaction continued as she explained some of the small sacrifices she had made to reach this point in her life. She spoke about working long hours to support her family, managing responsibilities with limited resources, and finding moments of personal growth despite the challenges. Each story she shared carried an emotional weight, a testament to the perseverance and strength that had brought her here. The billionaire nodded in understanding, recognizing that her success and confidence were not sudden or superficial, but the result of years of effort, patience, and self-discipline. He asked her how she balanced the pressures of her work with her personal aspirations. She answered that she focused on one step at a time, prioritizing what was most important and never losing sight of her ultimate goals. Her perspective was practical yet inspiring, demonstrating a maturity that went far beyond her age or job title. He found himself reflecting on his own life and the lessons he could take from her approach, realizing that wisdom and resilience often come from places he had overlooked. As the conversation deepened, she continued to serve other tables, maintaining her professional demeanor while engaging meaningfully with him. Her ability to manage multiple responsibilities without losing focus or composure was remarkable, and it did not escape his attention. He began to ask questions not out of challenge but out of genuine interest in her experiences, her values, and her outlook on life. The dynamic between them had transformed from one of judgment to one of mutual respect. The young waitress shared her dreams, explaining that she aspired to improve her life and her family's situation while remaining grounded in the values she held dear. She spoke about integrity, honesty, and the importance of helping others whenever possible. Her words were simple but powerful, resonating beyond the immediate setting and creating a connection based on shared human understanding rather than social status. The billionaire reflected on his own assumptions and realized that he had underestimated her based on appearances alone. Her intelligence, poise, and character had challenged his preconceptions, teaching him a lesson about the danger of judging people too quickly. He admired the way she carried herself with dignity, showing strength without arrogance and humility without weakness. The contrast between her modest exterior and the confidence she radiated had left a lasting impression. Throughout the interaction, she remained composed, never boasting about her accomplishments or the black card she had revealed earlier. Instead, she let her actions and words convey her abilities and worth. The billionaire noticed this restraint, understanding that true confidence does not require display or exaggeration. He felt a growing respect and a desire to know her better, not just as a waitress, but as a person of substance. Other staff and diners observed the exchange, sensing the transformation in the billionaire's attitude. The subtle power of character and authenticity was evident, demonstrating that influence and respect can be earned in ways that go beyond wealth or social standing. The young waitress had turned a potentially uncomfortable encounter into a moment of empowerment, showing that dignity, knowledge, and composure can command attention and respect without conflict. As the restaurant quieted and customers finished their meals, the billionaire invited her to sit briefly, asking more about her aspirations and challenges. She agreed, balancing curiosity with professionalism, sharing insights into her determination and approach to life. Her ability to articulate her experiences with clarity and grace impressed him deeply. He realized that her resilience and authenticity were qualities he rarely encountered, and he began to see the value in offering guidance and support. He spoke about the opportunities that could open up for someone with her intelligence and character, suggesting ways she might pursue education, mentorship, or professional growth. She listened attentively, absorbing the advice without losing her sense of self. Her responses were thoughtful, reflecting both appreciation and a grounded understanding of her situation. The interaction became a quiet exchange of ideas, hopes, and encouragement, a rare moment of genuine connection in a world often dominated by superficial interactions. As the lunch service came to an end, he acknowledged her efforts, expressing sincere admiration for her composure, intelligence, and integrity. She thanked him politely, maintaining the same calm and professional demeanor that had defined her day. Their interaction had evolved into a meaningful connection, a recognition of the strength and character that cannot be judged by outward appearances alone. She had shown that perseverance, authenticity, and quiet confidence can leave a lasting impact, reshaping perceptions and opening doors in unexpected ways. Walking through the restaurant one final time, she reflected on the day's events with a quiet sense of pride. She had faced judgment, maintained her professionalism, revealed her knowledge and strength, and created a space for meaningful dialogue. The billionaire, once dismissive and mocking, had become an observer of her resilience and intelligence, ultimately respecting her for the person she truly was. The experience left both of them changed. She walked away with reinforced confidence and the satisfaction of having navigated a challenging encounter with grace. He left with a renewed understanding of the power of character, humility, and insight, recognizing that true respect and admiration are earned through authenticity rather than wealth or status. Their meeting had become a story of human connection, a reminder that dignity, intelligence, and perseverance are qualities that shine brightest when tested. As she closed out her shift and prepared to leave, the young waitress felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had not only completed a busy lunch service but had also demonstrated the quiet strength and intelligence that defined her character. The encounter had been more than a meeting. It had been a moment of empowerment, a lesson in resilience, and a reminder of the importance of staying true to oneself despite judgment or skepticism. The restaurant continued its evening rhythm, the soft hum of conversation and the clatter of dishes providing a familiar backdrop. Yet, within that ordinary setting, a profound interaction had taken place. The young waitress had turned a moment of potential ridicule into a demonstration of dignity, competence, and self-respect. The billionaire had been challenged to reconsider his assumptions and had gained insight into the depth and strength that can exist behind appearances. Leaving the restaurant, she carried with her the satisfaction of having turned a difficult encounter into a moment of empowerment and mutual respect. Her actions, words, and demeanor had not only commanded attention, but had also created a lasting impression that would extend beyond that day. The encounter was a testament to the power of authenticity, patience, and confidence, showing that true strength is revealed not through wealth or status, but through character, resilience, and the quiet confidence to stand firm in one's values.